welcome to another episode of Around the House. I'm your host, Steve O'Brien, and as you loyal viewers know, I do home improvement projects around the house, as the name of the show says, and we do many different kinds of projects. We've got some interesting ones that we've done, and we're always looking for new projects. Well, today we're in the shop, and we're going to be doing a little work in the shop. Today's show is on handrail installation. And this project will be very interesting to a lot of people, and there's some little tricks and tips that I can pass along. I think that'll help a lot of people. So I hope you can stay with us. This will be a good show. All right, we're here in the shop, and I've assembled some of the parts we're going to need for this railing installation project. I want to kind of give you an overview of some of these parts and the different applications before we actually do the project. First of all, and bear with me with this, I'm from the old school, and I used to do things the old school way. And you probably, a lot of you people out there probably familiar what this is. This is what they call a stud finder. And I am technologically not too smart. So I have all I can do to get these things to work. I used to tap the wall, like a lot of the old timers out there would tap the wall with a hammer. You'd feel the density of the wall with the hammer, and I've done that. And in this case, I'm going to try using the stud finder. So if I don't hit a stud, you guys will all be laughing at me out there, but I'm going to give it my best. So you would need a stud finder. And I bought this, it's brand new, never been used. So this will be its maiden voyage. So that's one thing I would recommend. And number two, we're going to need some of this blue tape, or you can use any masking tape, anything like that. I just happen to have this around the shop. A chalk line, preferably with blue chalk in it. Blue chalk wipes off a little easier than red chalk. Or if you buy a brand new chalk line, I would recommend using baby powder. Because it will come off if you have wallpaper with a texture in it. The baby powder, white baby powder, will wipe off much easier than this blue stuff. But the blue stuff, if you have it, it'll come off okay. But I would not recommend using red chalk. Okay, and these are your basic supports, basic railing supports. You can get them at any hardware store. There's multiple types. This is your most common type. And I purchased these simulated brass, we'll say. Nothing's real brass anymore. It's probably coated with a brass coating. They have the stainless steel, the brushed nickel look, and they have different styles too. You don't have to buy this style. This is just one that was readily available, so I picked these up. And a 3/32 drill bit would be handy to have when we go to drill the brackets in to the bottom of the rail. I'll show you how that goes when we get to it. Now I want to show you, most importantly, we do need the handrail. This is an oak handrail, and this will be stained at some point. But what I want to point out to the viewers here, and I've done jobs for people, and they always ask me this question, why is there a seam on the top? You can probably see the seam in that shot right there. There's seams in the top. They have to do that. Don't ask me why, but they tell me they have to. They don't make them without the seam there. And in some cases like this one, the bad part is you have a little discoloration. This is more of a reddish, pinkish hue to it, and this is a little on the lighter side. Well, we can leave the stain on this lighter side a little bit longer than this one, and it'll come out pretty close to matching. But on the side here, they do. It's called a fillet. And they layer the railing in three different strips, and I highlighted it with my pencil where the seam would be. Right where that pencil line is, you'll see a seam running across, and right here there's another seam. So there's actually three components to this rail, and that's actually a good thing, because if you were to have a solid one-piece railing, it would be more prone to warpage and twisting. Because it just wouldn't be as strong. So this usually makes a nice strong rail, and it's very, very straight. So you want a railing to have different laminations, almost like a sheet of plywood. It adds to the strength of the railing. So that's the railing we're going to be using today's project. And most importantly, we're going to need a level. You need a 4-foot level or longer. This is I believe this is a 6-foot level, but it'll work for our project. And that's about it. So we're going to get started on our installation project. We got to make a few preliminary cuts. These railings are a little bit longer than what we need. So we're going to get it rough cut so it's just easier for us to handle. And we'll actually use the scrap piece for our return. So in our next shot, we'll be laying these out to install. Okay, now we're at the stage of the process where we're going to do the laying out of the railing. And number one, what I'd like you to do is you take the railing, it's in its rough length, and you lay it on top of the stairs. So it's just touching the very nosings, the tips of the stair treads all the way down. So it's parallel with the stairs. Now, where we're going to get our miter on our returns for our railing, our top and bottom, what we do to establish that will be, we'll mark the intersection. You'll see where your baseboard transitions from the floor to the rake, they call it. The rake is the angle. Where those two moldings transition, that's where you make your pencil mark. That will be the long point of our 45. So our 45 will go like that, but that's the long point. And we do it at the bottom, the same as the top. And I'll mark that right now. So we're going to do that at the bottom. You can see maybe the transition point at the bottom. That will also be the long point. And I usually make the long point. I make the angle with the pencil of where the direction of the 45, because when you get it down on the saw bench, sometimes you can get confused. So I just draw the rough angle on the handrail like that, and that gives me, there's no chance I'm going to make that angle in the wrong direction. So now that's that. Now what I want to do, one more thing before we move that, is we have to establish the thickness of this rail. Now what I want to do with my framing square is I'm going to get pretty much a plumb line, which will bring us on the diagonal like that's there. Now, and I'm going to show you why I'm doing this in a minute. Now, we measure the railing height. Will be on the diagonal. This is a 3-inch thick railing. So we got 3 inches. Now what we're going to do, why I'm doing this now, is we're going to establish our railing height. And the building code requires this railing to be between 32 and 34 inches high to the top of the rail. We have to factor in everything to do that. So this rail is 3 inches high. Now we have to take into account the height of the bracket. And to do that, we put the bracket on the framing square just like that. And we go to the center of the hole. I'll try to show that a little better on the camera. And we go to the center of the hole, and the center of that hole is about, it's showing on my square, it's about 2 5/8 to the center of that hole. So we've got 2 5/8 and 3 inches. That would be 5 5/8. I'll just make a little notation of that somewhere where I can erase it. 5 5/8. So now we've established our setback to get us what we need. We're going to go with a 33-inch. I'm going to keep it, actually maybe I'll keep it 32 to the top of the handrail. And that's, we're going to factor all that in. But in our next shot, we're going to find the studs. But first we're going to snap a chalk line. We're going to establish our height. And then we're going to proceed to cut the rail. And then we'll install it. So stay with us for that. All right, we're at the laying out process of this project today. And the next step we're going to do is, that's the reason I wanted you to have some tape, is this is a black level. If you have a silver one, you don't have to do this, but I put the tape on the level so we can make a pencil mark and we can illustrate our heights. And first thing I want to do is you put your level hard against the, they call it the nosing of the stair. That's where the rounded edge is, just like that. And you mark the top of the stair tread right on the tape. Okay, that's the top of our stair tread. Now you remember we were going to go 32 inches to the top of our handrail. So what I want to do now, I'll try to show you as best I can. We're going to measure from that pencil mark I just made, which is the top of our tread. Assistant, can you hold that level, please? Thank you. I have an assistant around the corner helping me. So we have a stair tread. We're going to measure up from the top of our stair tread, which that mark indicates, 32 inches, which would be the top of our handrail. Now remember, in our last shot, we measured the handrail to be 3 inches thick and this bracket 2 5/8. So that came to 5 5/8. We deduct that 5 5/8 from that 32 inches we just made. So here we are, 5 5/8. And that's our reference mark when we go to make this height. So now, okay, thank you, assistant. We're going to put this right down there like we just had it. And now we plumb it. All right. Okay, we're right about there. We're nice and plumb. And this is our mark we're going to go by. Make a little dot on the wall. That's all you want to do. Make a little dot right there. And we're going to do the same thing at the very top. Okay, we go up to the very top nosing. And we're going to do the same thing. You put it right hard against it like that. And actually, I'm going to go down one more. Let's go down to the second tread down here. It doesn't really matter. Now, I'm going to make a dot. Now you can see that, hopefully on camera. That's my 32-inch reference mark. And that actually will be, it looks a little low, I know right now, but you got to factor in the height of everything. That will be the center point for my bracket. And then with the rail on top, that'll give us our 32 inches. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to snap a chalk line, and that will establish our angle, a parallel angle to our skirt board. Or we call it a rake in the business. All right, now I'm using blue chalk, as I said earlier. Now my assistant has to come and just stand there for a moment, please. Actually, you know what I'm going to do instead of a chalk line? I think I'm going to just make a pencil line for now. Chalk line will work, but I'm going to make I'd rather use a parallel line with my level. I can erase this later. And you don't have to go crazy. Only go near the top. Let's go up near the top. And I'm on my line there. I'm on my dot, I should say. And I'm going to just kind of, very lightly with a pencil, very lightly. And same thing down here. Now I'm going to just go a little further because our bracket's going to be probably a little bit higher. We want to kind of go up there a little bit. Okay. And now you can probably see that line on the wall. And we're going to just do it down here because the bracket might be down a little bit lower, but I'm going to do that just like that. And this will come off very easily. You can use any kind of a Fantastic or any kind of cleaner will take that pencil line right off. And the chalk sometimes makes more of a mess because it's very dusty. So now we've done that. Now, the part I told you earlier, the stud finder on its maiden voyage, and you saw it here first. Now, bear with me. Now you want to keep these brackets somewhat close to the ends of the rail, but you don't want them right on the end of the rail. So we'll find something close enough where we're not crowding the end of the rail. Here we go. Okay, not working. Unless it studs all the way up the wall. I'm having a bad reading here, so let's try it again. Okay. It's showing something right there. It's showing a lot of stuff right in there. So that might be a block or something, but that's a good spot actually to have it right there. So let's say that's it right there. I'm from the old school, and I'm still going to try tapping with my hammer. Oh yeah, there's something there. It's going to take me a while to get used to this, but I'm sure it's really a nice tool when you get used to it. Now we're going to do it up the top here. And there's a stud right there. So our top of railing is going to be right about here. So that's probably the best we're going to get it. Yeah, we'll probably get like a double stud here. So we got plenty of stud right here. So now I'm going to mark that right there as being center. And that will be the center of our bracket. Actually, it's really close to my dot right there. So in the next shot, we're going to fasten the brackets, and then we're going to take the rail down to the shop, make our cuts, we'll bring it back up, we'll install it, and then we'll put our miter pieces in onto the next one. All right, we brought the railing down into the shop, and now we're getting ready to make our miter cuts. This is why I told you up there we marked the angle, so we know the angle. We don't even have to think about it because we did it up there, the rough angle. It's a 45-degree angle. Now I put a backer behind the rail because, as you can see by the end of the rail, it's not flat, and it tends to want to roll on this little fence I have on the miter saw. So I just put a little backer behind it to give us a little more beef so the railing stays straight. And that's critical. If the railing is at a little angle, your 45 will not be true. So here we go. Safety glasses, remember that. And most of all, hearing protection, because this does get loud. So we're going to make our 45-degree cut now, and then we'll turn it around and do the other end. Always hold the saw away from the material until it gets up to full speed. And bring it down very slowly. Okay. That's our top miter. Now we'll spin it around, and we're going to have to change the angle. The only reason I'm spinning it around is because I have this neat little table here that supports the long end of the railing. You can do this with sawhorses and just build them up with something to make them the right height, because that's a lot of weight to hold steady. Now we have to reverse our miter. And let's see, our pencil mark is the long point, as I stated when we marked it. So I'm going to make that a little bit better for us to see with our framing square. We're going to bring that right across where it has to be, so we can be a little more accurate with our 45. It's not that accurate. It doesn't matter if it's exactly the same, but we want to get it close. Okay, so actually now our miter is in the same direction we want to be, according to my line that I put on there up when we were laying it out. So I'm very confident that's right, and we're ready to cut. Hearing protection and eye protection. You want to make sure this railing is sitting flat on your table, so it would also make your cut really off. So here we go. bit of dust on the cameraman, but we made the cut complete, and now we're ready to go put our brackets on, and we'll put our handrail up and get our measurements for our miter returns, which we can use our scrap pieces for the returns on the miter cut that we just made. So stay with us. In the next segment, we'll show you the installation process of this rail. All right, well, now the next step is to install the mounting brackets, and we're going to do that by first we lay the bracket on our little mark we made where our center of our stud is, and that, like I said earlier, is the center of the hole on the bottom of the bracket. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one screw in, and remember to do this. We drill the hole, we drill it in high speed. But when you're driving screws, as I've said many times, go in a slow RPMs, then you're not stripping out the screw as fast. So now we're going to put the bottom screw in first. Now you get it close, you bring it up to where it's fairly plumb, like that. And just tighten it up enough so it stays there. Okay, that's good and tight. Now we can drill the other two holes because we know the bracket is straight up and down and it's not going to slip on us. Revert back to high speed. And there you go, there. And you don't have to drill really far into the stud. Just make a mark. That's all. That just lets the screw find its way in so it's centered. And like I say, go back to slow. And I like the extension on the drill because it gets you beyond this point. If you didn't have an extension, you'd be hitting the tip of the bracket with the screw gun and you'd be going in at an angle and everything else. So an extension is good to have when doing something like this. Okay. We get one more in there. Okay, that's going to hold really good for a long time. Now we're going to do the same thing on the upper bracket, and then when we come back, you'll be able to see us putting the handrail on the brackets and getting ready to make our returns on the ends. Okay, we've mounted the handrail on our brackets. And what I'm going to do is just temporarily clamp these so they don't move. Okay, and make sure that the bottom cut doesn't go out beyond the wall, and that's where you want to be. So now what this lets us do is I want to make sure that I'm parallel on both ends. So we're going to measure our 45. And at this end, we're going to keep it at 3.5, and we'll keep it at 3.5 at the top because we're centered on our bracket pretty much underneath. So that's a good area for my fingers to be in there. So if we keep both top and bottom 3.5 to the long point of our cut, we'll make the returns down in the shop, and we'll come back and install those and mount the railing and on to the next one. All right, we've cut our returns. As you can see, this is the top return. We've already nailed on our bottom return. Now we made these returns 3.5 inches from the long point to the square edge, which will be against the wall. And both are typical because we want to keep this railing parallel to the wall. So now our next step will be, we're going to apply some glue on that. Don't go too crazy with the glue or you'll have a big mess on your hands. Just enough glue in the middle. Keep it away from the edges because it will mush out when you nail it. And now we're going to use our nail gun. Like I said, we can nail this by hand, but we're running short on time. So I'm just going to show you how to do this now. One nail is all we need, and I'm hoping the railing, the clamp holes, you got to make sure the clamp is good and solid because this tends to want to push out. And here we go. Actually, that did move a little bit, and I'm going to fix that before we nail it because once you nail it, you're committed to it. I'm going to hit that in just a little bit. want that to hold. When we nail that, it's going to want to push out. And I don't want it to push out too far. Okay, here we go. Keeping everything flush. That's a done deal. Okay, that one's done. I might put another nail in that because it didn't line up the way I wanted it to. Watch your hands. Okay, that's good. I can live with that. Okay, now in the next shot, we're going to show you. We're going to actually fasten the rail with the screws underneath, and that'll be the final step in the installation process. Okay, we've pre-drilled our holes for our brackets that go under the rail. I use a 3/32 drill bit. It's pretty handy to use on everything with the railing installation. Okay, we're going to do one little trick, and I probably showed you this in a prior show, but I'm going to keep showing people this. We rub the screw into a little bit of soap, and that coats the threads so it goes right through the oak, nice and easy. You don't want to be straining with these because it'll either strip or you'll break the head of the screw right off. So here we go. We've got the holes already lined up, and I'm going to start both screws. Okay, before you tighten them down, just wax that one up, a little soap, and then we're going to do the other screw. Okay, we're ready to go. Make sure the railing is in tight to the wall. And just go gradually and tighten them equally. Don't tighten one, tighten them both at the same time as you go. There you go. You don't want to strip these out. Beautiful. That's solid. That's a solid railing. And we'll have many good years of use with that. So there you have it. That's the end result of the railing installation project. All right, we've completed this project. Now all we have left to do is we'll take the railing down and we'll give it a light sanding, and we'll prepare it for our stain to match our stair treads. That'll be the end for that. But thanks for being with us. I hope you got something from that. We have a few more of these rails to put up on this project, but we just thought we'd show you this one. And it's all typical. The heights can vary. Like I say, 32 to 34 is the code to the top of the railing. That's all you really need to remember. Thanks again for joining us. Now, I'd like to mention one thing before I leave. Any contractors out there or anybody who has a product or service related to the home improvement industry, why don't you drop us a line, and maybe we could arrange to have you on a show and you could talk about your services or your product that you have. We'd be more than happy to talk with people about that. So give that some thought, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. You've been watching Around the House. I'm your host, Steve O'Brien. You can email me at finisheddimensions@yahoo.com, or you can visit my website, finisheddimensions.com. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the next show.
Where are you headed?
Just gonna hang out.
If any of your buddies ever pressure you to take a drink, just tell them you promised your dad you wouldn't.
I promise. Love you too, Dad.
They really do hear you. For tips on what to say, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.